San Francisco bans homeless people from living in RVs with new parking limit. When I first started doing this gig, daily podcasting, homeless people were a protected class. You couldn't say anything negative about them. But now we've got Governor Newsom running for president in 2028. San Francisco being his home city, we got to clean things up. Where are these people going to go? Let's get into it. Here we go. Let's watch the Associated AP story on that. I mean, it should be good for a laugh, right? AP always has such a left-wing bent.
We've had, over the past several years, a growing crisis around RV homelessness. Today, there are nearly 500 large oversized vehicles dotting the roadways across San Francisco. And the current situation is unsustainable. It's not a good situation for families to be raising their children in RVs.
So the legislation does multiple things. Restriction for large vehicles. It is RVs where people live, but it's also other large vehicles. No more than 2 hours on a city street while they are working with the Department of Homelessness to secure permanent housing with a subsidy. It also provides a program for buying those vehicles from the families.
Instead, what they're saying is, we want people to move out of these RVs into housing, but we still have thousands and thousands of people on the streets who also need housing, and there's not enough for everybody. And I'm really worried about immigrants getting cast out of the sanctuary city.
So I gotta go to bed like around.
So you notice they throw the immigrants in there because that's a heartstring. And I agree with her 100%. The issue is you don't have enough public housing for everybody. So you tell these people, oh, you can only park here for 2 hours. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? It doesn't make any sense. And yet the politics are such that they got to do something. This is it. Be a complete failure right off the bat.
We're like around 5. It's not easy to be in a place like this. It's not easy, but they try to do it even harder, which I don't think is right. So where are we gonna move then? Go to Oakland? And it's the same thing that's happening over there. Okay, so we don't have nowhere to go.
No, that wasn't actually, that's a fairly accurate portrayal. I mean, build it and they will come. There's a group of people that are living in their home, in their RVs, because that's all they can afford. But the vast majority are people doing a whole bunch of drugs. Now, when you see the clean areas like here, this leads me to believe that these are people who just simply flat can't afford it. Or else there's been a cleanup right before the AP went out and shot this segment. Either one could be true. You go to Oakland and see a whole bunch of encampment or RVs lined up on the public street like this. It is an absolute war zone, you-know-what show. And the issue is, you can ban them, but where are they going to go? These are people that don't have resources. They're not sitting on 10, 20 grand of capital that they could use to, put a down payment on an apartment, fix up their RV, move it. These aren't people that you can move every 2 hours. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever set up an RV. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I mean, you're supposed to level it out, do hookups, and these people are just, parking on the side of the street. And yeah, San Francisco banned homeless people from living in RVs by adopting strict new parking limits, the mayor says, are necessary to keep sidewalks clear and prevent trash buildup. Oh, so now the sidewalks and the streets are important, but you just allowed them to go wherever and do their thing, and they have, and now they're basically lining your streets, and you're thinking, oh, God, this isn't good. We got to do something. What are we going to do here? Because most of these folks don't have the resources to get into housing. Therefore, you can ban them all you want, but they're people. They can't just, you're not going to sweep them under the rug. No go. And their RVs, what a nightmare. I mean, so many of these RVs, the ones I see in Seattle here, they don't run. I mean, it's hard enough to keep an RV if you have money going. Something's just it's like a boat continually breaking. There's always something going sideways. The policy, which received final approval by San Francisco supervisors Tuesday, targets at least 400 recreational vehicles in the city of 800,000 people. The RVs serve as shelter for people who can't afford housing, including immigrant families with kids. There's the tug at your heartstrings. Okay. And so without places to put these folks, you can ban them 10 ways from Sunday. And what do you have? You got nothing. You got absolutely nothing. Because where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? Those who live in them say they're a necessary option in an expensive city where affordable apartments are impossible to find. At some point in time, we're going to have that shift where these people are flat out not able to live in San Francisco. They're going to have to move somewhere cheaper. They're going to have to do some kind of deal. Because otherwise, the city's just going to be continually sweeping them, which they're already doing. They're already doing sweeps. Not necessarily in Oakland. I mean, you see the video footage of that, and you're like, good Lord, these things haven't been swept forever. But they're actually doing sweeps in Oakland as well of homeless encampments that have been there for 4 or 5 years. You'll see the footage of people crying, but they're living illegally on the streets, and I get it. It's super expensive. It's super expensive. But that doesn't mean that it's legal to do. And so the city had, if you want to sweep people, you have to come up with some kind of alternative. Where are they going to go? Because that is reality. This is news for reasonable people. This is not news for knuckleheads, right? But Mayor Daniel Lurie and other supporters of the policy say motorhomes are not suitable for long-term living. They never have been, especially on public streets. We're just coming to this conclusion now. And the city has a duty to provide both shelter to those in need and clean up the streets. The problem is you've told them that they can come. You've told the illegals they can come. They all came. And now you got to pay. Now you got to fund them until you don't. And that means physically moving them out of your city. How are you going to do that? Involuntarily? What are you going to do? Yeah, a lot of questions, zero answers, because this issue doesn't have a good answer. We absolutely want to serve those families, those who are in crisis across San Francisco. So we feel the responsibility to help them get to a stable solution. And at the same time, we want to make sure that the stability is somewhere indoors and not exposed in the public roadway. All right, let's talk about that little sentence for just a second. Do you think gruesome Newsom, Brill Cream, podcaster Newsom, running for president in 2028 has anything to do with this, his hometown, his elected town of San Francisco? Do you think there might be a mandate? Absolutely. Absolutely. And this has been ongoing for a long time. Newsom has put massive pressure on the individual cities to get things cleaned up. The problem is, it's not like a squatter house where, you've just got a handful of squatters and you can figure out what to do with them. This is thousands and thousands and thousands of people. California has 187,000 known, certified via the PIT count, point in time count, homeless people. 187,000. Where are you going to put all those? You've got a tiny, tiny fraction of housing available. What are you going to do? Where are you going to put them? Yeah, that's the response. Critics of the plan, however, say that it's cruel to force people to give up their only home in exchange for a shot at traditional housing when there is not nearly enough units for all the people who need help. The mayor is only offering additional money to help 65 households. So they're saying 400 rigs got to go, 400 RVs got to go, and they're offering money to 65 households. So where does everybody else go? I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just asking the question. Literally, where do they go? You know what the answer is? Away, because we need to keep our sidewalks clean. All of a sudden, street cleanliness is now a priority because Gavin Newsom's going to become, he's going to become the front runner for the Democratic Party. And these are the buyer objections. Hey, what about all that homelessness in San Francisco, your city that you represented? Well, we cleaned that up. We did this, we did that. You can't you won't be able to take care of this before he runs. It's still going to be an absolute shit show. And, the greater state of California, with the amount of homeless that it's got, Washington State has a ton of homeless people. Oregon, ton of homeless people. And why do they go there? Because there's resources for them. There's plenty of resources for them, but not enough resources to give them all housing and get them off the streets. Jennifer Friedenbach, Executive Director of Coalition on Homelessness, we heard her talk, says city officials are woefully behind on establishing details of an accompanying permit program, which will exempt RV residents from parking limits so long as they're working with homeless outreach staff to find housing. Okay, I mean, you're stabbing in the right direction. But as far as having actual reduction in the number of homeless people, that ain't happening. Now, California does have a slowing down of the number of homeless people being added to its population, but it's not reducing. It's not going in the negative from where it's been. It's still on that ramp. I think that there's going to be people who lose their RVs. I think there's going to be people who need to be able to get into shelter, but at the expense of people with higher needs, like those sleeping on a sidewalk, she said. And you've got a ton of those throughout San Francisco. Those people are going to get prioritized. They're going to get prioritized. So this little Mickey Mouse move here it's just another San Francisco shenanigan, right? It's a shenanigan that they can point to and go, we did something. Aren't we great? It's like, it's like Antifa standing out in front of the ICE buildings with their fake homemade shields going, we're helping the community. And all you can think of is, what? You're a bunch of morons. You're a bunch of just absolute knuckleheads. What are you guys doing? Go home. San Francisco, like other U.S. cities, has seen an explosion in recent years of people living out of vehicles and RVs as the cost of living has risen. Banned oversized vehicles is part of Lurie's pledge to clean up San Francisco streets. All right, banning oversized vehicles. All right, no more. But the reality is, it's not like these people have options, right? They don't have options. So literally, quite literally, where are they going to go? Where are you going to send them? What's going to happen? There was, Santa Monica. I just did a podcast on a local business leader in Santa Monica, and he is providing one-way tickets out of town for the homeless as long as they have a relative waiting for them on the other end, and they've only been in town for a year. So he's kind of really dialed in the demographic that can benefit from getting home. Now, I question that as well, because most people who are wildly addicted to drugs, they aren't accepted back in their family. They're just not. They've been ixnay on coming to Thanksgiving because they're unreliable. They steal from the family. They hurt the family. They come in and they just create a bunch of havoc, just a bunch of disasters, as anybody on drugs does. And most families don't want them back. So that program, everybody's trying something, but build it and they will come is their reality. San Francisco's reality, Seattle's reality, Portland reality, because they're there and they're people. You can't sweep them under the rug. I know a lot of people want to say, well, find an island and just stick them on there. Well, you'd have to be able to involuntarily move them there because nobody's going to want to go onto an island with a whole bunch of other homeless people where there's no availability of drugs and there's no availability of stealing from stores to get said drugs in any sense. So these cities are kind of stuck with it. And you know what? I think a lot of this is on purpose. And I think they knew this. I think these cities knew this because then you've got the homeless industrial complex that always has their hand out with the taxpayer dollars because it costs a lot of money to run housing for these people. I mean, when you've got programs giving out needles, giving out booty bump kits, and you've got to fund all that kind of stuff, it takes dollars. And if you solve the homelessness issue, what happens to the homeless industrial complex? It collapses on itself because you've created a solution. You've made it work. And if you give housing to everybody, homeless are going to come from everywhere because they know, all right, everybody's getting housing in this city. Let's go there. That's what you got going on. So it creates that vacuum. There is no good answer to this other than some extreme tough love. And that's what big Republican cities do. And people just absolutely rake on them because, oh, you're not compassionate. And the state is, or the city or the county is like, hey, we don't have the money. And we can't ask our taxpayers to pay for people who don't want to work, who are whacked out of their mind on drugs, and just live in absolute squalor, which the vast majority of the homeless do. And part of the growing trend to require homeless people to accept offers of shelter or risk arrest or tows. So you threaten them with arrest. You going to throw them in jail? All right, now they got a roof over their head. They're going to get a meal. You know what I mean? It's not ideal, but jail is housing. It's one of those 3 things that people need to be forced to do. Go get treatment. Get into a program, whatever that is. Don't have enough of those. Get psychiatric care. So many of these people living on the streets are just absolutely batshit crazy. And I mean that in a literal term. Not that I think their ideology is warped. They are mentally, they're gone. That's why they're living there. So you can arrest them. You can tow their RV. Doesn't solve the problem. You're just moving it around. You're just whack-a-mole, and then out pops the, what was that? Mole. It was the mole. And mole's here. I hit the mole. And the mole just pops up. On Tuesday, about 3 dozen people gathered outside City Hall and marched somberly through the building, hoping to influence supervisors to vote against the measure, but it cleared the board of supervisors with 2 of 11 supervisors voting no. Proposal sets a 2-hour parking limit citywide for all RVs and oversized vehicles longer than 22 feet, regardless of whether they're being used as housing. Most cities have that, and most cities have already enforced the fact that you can't just park willy-nilly and just, it's going to be great, just going to live here. Most cities that have established laws and enforce it. That's the problem with these cities that haven't. You haven't enforced it. People got used to that. Some of it had to do with the pandemic. During the pandemic, the CDC said, don't move the homeless around because you're going to spread the Rona. I mean, what a bunch of nonsense they told us, right? Just absolute harebrained nonsense. Under the accompanying, because the homeless are outside. They're living in a tent. Rona just evaporates into the air. It doesn't really, but that's more a dramatic, way of describing it. Under the accompanying permit program, RV residents registered with the city as of May are exempt from the parking limits. In exchange, they must accept the city's offer of temporary or longer-term housing and get rid of their RV when it's time to move. So the real issue is the optics. They don't care about streets being clean, clearly, right? It's the optics. Good Lord, look at all these RVs. This isn't good. We got to do something. What are we going to do? This is what supervisors come up with. The city has budgeted more than $500,000 to buy RVs from residents at $175 per foot. All right, so you got a 20-foot RV and call that $200. That's a little bit of money to get going, isn't it? I mean, it's a step in the right direction. But then after they spend that money, then what? Hopefully they bought a tent because they're going to need it because their housing runs out and they got nowhere to go. Where are you going to put them? Where are you going to put them? And housing is so expensive in San Francisco, your rental housing, because you've constricted the supply and you're in between the water and mountains, just like Seattle. You've got these constraints. You've got physical geographic constraints. And then you've got a bunch of politicians who love trees and, housing is terrible. Housing development is terrible, but we want more housing. We want more affordable housing. But hey, like Seattle did, the state of Washington did, let's put a cap on rent because then, the logic is so twisted because they don't understand that you've disincentivized anybody coming in building that type of housing. Because who wants to build in an environment where everything's all regulated and capped out and super expensive, and you don't know if you're going to make any money on the deal. Go to a city, go to a state, go to a county that is more flexible, like Texas, like Oklahoma, like Tennessee. And that's what big builders are doing. And that's why you don't have the supply. And that's why the supply continues to shrink and your rents go through the roof. Seattle right now has some of the highest inflation in the nation. Actually, the highest inflation in the nation, I believe. Let's check this out. Most expensive Uber. Sorry, that's a different story. And yeah, Seattle faces nation's worst inflation as living costs soar. It's a known quantity. And man, we have got some people living in RVs in Seattle. You know, people that just drop out and do drugs. Because most people struggle. And if you can't afford a city, they're going to move. They're going to move with relatives somewhere. They're going to move somewhere cheaper. They're going to do what they need to do. But in these big blue liberal cities, you've allowed people to stay wherever they want, on the street, on the sidewalks, curbs, parks, you name it. And why would they move? Until they're forced. Well, now you've got a situation where people have been living there for a long time, and it's kind of ingrained, and they don't have the ability to probably do much more. You know, getting their shit together and getting out of Dodge isn't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So what are you going to do? Yeah, that's the question of the hour, right? Because when you look at all these programs, when you look at all these ridiculous programs of, you know, trading RV for housing, it's literally. So they've budgeted more than $500,000. Well, is that going to be enough for all the RVs in San Francisco? They're saying there's 400. I can't believe that for a second. That doesn't make any sense at all. These programs are underfunded. They won't work, and they aren't really a solution for a much greater problem, which is homelessness can't be solved anytime soon. And even if you do try to solve it by putting all these people into housing, all you're going to do is create a vacuum for other homeless people to come because they're like, yeah, my buddy Jimmy in Seattle, he got housing and he's whacked out of his mind on drugs. Let's go there. And that's what they do. It's what they do. I mean, it's, here's a street that kind of looks like what it would look like in Seattle. You know, they're not terrible. They're not all awful. But you start to look at some of the streets in Oakland. Oof, wow. Just something else. Just absolutely mind-blowing. So build it and they will come. The situation has been created. Now the solution? Dicey at best. Because as you can see with these politicians, with Daniel Lurie, and I believe Daniel Lurie is trying to do some of the right things for San Francisco. He's trying to be tough on crime, but it's like all these things. You've let the cat out of the bag. Cat ain't going back in the bag anytime soon. And you don't have the resources to make the cat go back in the bag. And you don't have the political will of all the folks. And you certainly don't have the political will of the constituents who are half like, I don't really want that around my children. And the other half are like, let the homeless live wherever. We feel compassion for our unhoused neighbors who are just merely urban camping. And meanwhile, the guy's doing meth and taking a dump on the sidewalk. Urban camping? All right. Okay. Yeah, whatever. All right. That's it for me on this one. This whole thing is a big fat zero. Maybe a handful of people work out how to get a little bit of money for their RVs. But bottom line is those people are destined for homelessness because the reason they're living in their RV down by the river, because they've made life choices that have put them in a situation or life has had its way with them. And here they are. And they need some massive help. Don't have the dollars to do it. Simply don't have the dollars to do it. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.